Welcome to another Client Insights and Experience Share. I'm Zamir Javer, Jumpfactor CEO, and I have a special guest with us today here, Larissa Cox from Buchanan Technologies. And she's here to share some of her experience in being a marketing executive at a managed service provider, as well as some of her experience working with Jumpfactor as a lead generation partner. And so I'll share a little bit of a background just to kind of give you all some context and then hand it over to Larissa. Larissa, welcome. Thanks for being with us here today.
Thanks for having me, Zamir.
So in terms of the just kind of quick overview for Buchanan Technologies is a North America focused managed IT services provider. Been around for about 35 years and has grown to over 850 people across the continent. One of the the senior leadership likes to kind of reference the firm as one of the best kept secrets in the MSP world, as they are not a cookie cutter MSP and has the ability to essentially customize some of their offerings for clients. And so over the years, the firm has acquired many other smaller and specialized technology firms and MSPs and has won countless awards, over 50 awards in many, many different categories across the US, from the MSP 501 list to Microsoft Awards, Channel E2E Awards, MSP Elite, MSP 501, and several others. Larissa has been at Buchanan for just under 9 years and is the vice president of marketing there. She brings to the table over 20 years of experience as a marketing professional and is based in Texas. And she was instrumental in helping to create the lead gen program there. But I'll hand it over to you, Larissa. Maybe you can share a little bit of context on sort of what does Buchanan focus on in terms of target market and a little bit about your responsibility there at the firm.
Yeah, thanks, Zamir. Buchanan serves pretty much any industry across North America and really the globe, because we've done expansions even into India, and we have an office in Bulgaria. There's only a few industries that we don't really tap into because we have a full scope of what we call line of business services. And what we found is what retailers need versus what healthcare needs versus what financial needs is very different. So we can customize our solutions to really fit any industry in most cases. When I came into Buchanan, they didn't really have a digital footprint. So the first couple of years was build a website, create collateral. They had done a lot of blogging, and really they had IT people running marketing. When I came in, they really wanted a marketer to run marketing. And so when I came in, we did a lot of the same things that they had done for the first year. And then I finally went to my boss and said, this isn't working. Let's do something different. And at that point, I knew SEO was the answer. I knew that we needed to build a digital footprint. I knew that we needed to drive, more leads, and I knew how people were beginning to find companies, and that was through search. And so at that point, I went to look for an SEO company, and I probably interviewed about 5 at that time. And what I really liked about Jumpfactor, because I was, again, like you said, I was in Texas. You guys are in Toronto. Right. And, we have an office in Toronto. We have an office in Mississauga. And so I talked to, my leadership and said, I found this company out of Toronto and I think that they could be the ones, And so I interviewed your team, and really you guys came to the table with the best overall strategy. And, right. When we started with, I remember my account manager saying, well, what's your goal? And I said, I want 5 leads a month. Like, that's all I wanted. I had 5 business development executives at the time, and I wanted to give each one of them a web lead, through the website. I want to give them each 1 lead. And today it can go as high as 40 leads a month. We've grown that, with an average being somewhere between 25 and 30. And when I say that, I mean meeting ready leads, like leads that customers saying, I'm interested in this. Can we please, can I talk to someone? That doesn't count the MQLs and the downloads and the other things that we get as well, which probably can go upwards to, 50 or 60.
That's great. That's well, thanks for sharing. That's a lot of great information. And I think if we kind of maybe step back to sort of when we initially engaged, one thing that would be really helpful to understand for some of the viewers is My understanding and recollection is you actually were doing some marketing in-house. You had sort of, initiated the creation of digital, and you were working with a few different vendors. Perhaps you can share a little bit about, what was that experience like? What were some of the challenges that led you to essentially move away from that and then work with a sort of individual team or turnkey provider like Jumpfactor?
Yeah, so back then, I was me, myself, and I in the department, and we needed to write blogs, and we needed to do creative, and we needed to update web pages, and we needed someone looking at SEO strategy. So I had, a free service to look at SEO keywords that I was rummaging through myself every month. I had a contractor helping me with SEO and trying to make, headway. And we did make a little headway. Actually, what he did for us at that time is what opened the door for Jumpfactor, because it got the team to see, hey, this can work, right? Then we had someone else doing design, and I was just jumping all over the place trying to manage, basically just manage contractors. And I needed to take a step back and say, we need to be strategic. When I interviewed Jump Factor, it just fit like a glove. You guys had all of the resources that I needed in house. So if I needed someone to help me write a blog one day, you have writers on staff. If I needed an SEO strategist, you had that expertise. And if I just need an account manager to help me, map out the next 9 months or whatever, you had that as well. So that's really what turned me to Jump Factor. And obviously it's worked out very well because we've worked with you guys for many years now.
Great, thanks for sharing that context. And yeah, for some added context for the viewers, Buchanan started with Jumpfactor in 2019, and so it's been about 4 years since then. As Larissa mentioned, she was sort of managing a number of contractors and freelancers at the time, and so then decided to shift and leverage a broader team within Jumpfactor that was more sort of orchestrated together and working in unison. And so a little bit in terms of some of the KPIs, just so that we can share. It looks like here from the data that I've pulled with the team, initially the page one visibility was about 100 keywords, and a lot of it was branded. Today, if we fast forward, there's over 2,200 keywords that are on page one. So almost a 20x increase there. Traffic had moved from about roughly 2,000, again, a lot of branded traffic in the beginning, to today as high as 20,000 visitors unique per month. So again, another 10x increase. And of course, that's resulted in what you described earlier as the increase in lead flow from maybe just a couple of leads or no leads in some months up to now 40 plus per month. And not including the marketing type leads or downloads, but these are actual qualified, sales qualified type leads, which we would say are bottom of funnel leads, people looking for actual services or inquiring about, packages and so on. And so that's a pretty massive shift, and I'm sure it had some impact on the team. So perhaps you can share a little bit about that. How did this shift change the internal organization from a sales perspective, where there were literally almost no leads coming in earlier, but now a very consistent flow? How have things changed from a sales execution standpoint?
Well, we definitely rearranged our sales team based on the results that marketing was having. And we needed, focused people to take these leads and run with them. So our team historically had been made up of account representatives who both did hunting and farming. So while they managed a set of accounts, they were also hunting for new accounts. And what we learned is you tend to just manage the accounts because they're the ones you don't want to lose your accounts, and you stay focused on your customers, and there just wasn't enough time for hunting. So we shifted our sales team into two, so hunters and farmers. And the farmers basically farm the existing accounts, and they still look for new opportunities within those accounts, and they're tasked to grow the account. And then we have our business development representative team, and we had, like I said, about 5 of those that we were initially testing. And what we wanted to do was have them 100% on focused on hunting. And so now when a web lead comes in, it gets automatically assigned to one of those BDRs, and they run with it. And then even after that, Jumpfactor, just to add a little bit, you guys have helped us become more industry focused in some areas. So, like I said before, we can really serve many industries, but we have a lot of experience and a lot of customers in a few specific industries that we would call our bread and butter, and that's like manufacturing, retail, healthcare, automotive, finance. And so, since we were able to drive leads through the website, we've then targeted in onto some industry focuses, and then we've also taken our BDE team and allowed each of them to focus on specific industries. So now not only do I have to feed them all with leads, but I have to give them specific industry leads as well, and that's something we're still working on today.
Great. Yeah. And I know you've also shared in the past that, and one thing I really liked about the sales side on your team is that they've learned to really work the leads that come in aggressively. You have almost a completely systematized approach to follow up on leads very quickly. And one of the things we always sort of share with clients is speed to lead is the key, right? So following up very quickly and consistently, maybe even with an 8 or 10 touch cadence, to make sure that that initial connection and meeting is booked and is then leads to an opportunity. Whereas if time is elapsing, you can kind of lose that. And so one of the things that we've been really proud of and been able to work together and driving results is that we've been able to grow this program and make it more and more successful. I was looking with the team, and it looks like since the initiation in 2019, the program has grown in scope multiple times. You guys have sort of upgraded into more services, and the scope has increased almost 9x. And obviously, this must be based on some sort of ROI based decision. And
Right.
so that's one thing that, a lot of the MSPs at the end of the day, it's got to boil down to it really matters. What matters is the end result in terms of revenue and ROI. So it's been about 4 years. Obviously, there's been continued growth over time. But what can you share in terms of the impact from a financial perspective this has had on the company?
So absolutely, our partnership with Jump Factor in our SEO world and bringing leads through the website has been the number one return on investment from a marketing perspective. We have been able to drive consistent leads, and a lot of the companies that we still work with today, when we pull our numbers, came in through a web lead in 2019, 2020. And as you know, with an MSP, you typically have a 3 to 5 year contract is what we typically do. So I know to date, we're a US based company, so the SEO efforts that we've actually tied back to this is about 494,000 US dollars on a monthly recurring revenue, which equates to about 657 Canadian dollars, because I know you're Canadian based. And so we definitely have enough volume coming in to offset any cost. We're a big ROI company. Every marketing dollar I spend, I pretty much have to validate and say, here's what we're getting for those results. And we have to diversify that some, but definitely if I'm going to look at all of my buckets in marketing, SEO has been the number one driver. And that is why we have continued to come back to you guys and said, how do we do more? How do we do more? And just to say, on behalf of Jump Factor, we brought in, like you said at the beginning, we acquired some businesses and we brought in services that we didn't have initially. We bought them through acquisition. And your team dove right in, helped us build all the pages, helped us to get the keywords set for those pages, the keyword ideation, and it was very much a team effort where my team did some, your team did some, and we were quickly able to adapt to those new services, and we're ranking for them today, and that's really, I think, where you see the true value in the Jump Factor team.
Oh, that's wonderful. And we're so happy to be able to be part of that growth and help facilitate some of that. So, just for the audience to kind of understand, as a recap, of 657,000 in net new MRR closed. And this, as you mentioned, of course, MRR is just 1 month's value of revenue. But of course, managed retainers typically last for 5 years or longer, many much longer. And so we like to kind of look at it on an average 5 year basis. And so when we do it from that perspective, this amounts to about 39.46 million in net new lifetime value of revenue acquired. And of course, over the 4-year period, the cost to acquire that from a marketing perspective, or what we call an MCAC, as a percentage, is very small. And so, one of the things in the marketing world we sort of like to benchmark against is, companies, especially smaller ones, where company marketing may be a higher cost of revenue versus, when you achieve some scale, you want to be comfortable spending up to 15 to 20% of the revenue on marketing. And in this case, of course, that percentage is much, much lower. And so we have a very efficient, would you say, Larissa, perhaps from your side, inside you're, exposed to all the marketing channels, is this sort of the from a cost per lead perspective, would you say this has become the number one or two? Where does it sort of sit on your side?
It's absolutely number one, hands down. Yeah, number one. We spend the most here because we get the most here. And so when I look at my overall marketing budget, Jumpfactor gets the largest amount of that because we can prove those results of, and like you said, we win a deal, and it's a 5-year deal. So, and it continues to just grow and grow and grow, because like I said before, when the BDE hands it off to the AE, they continue to farm that, and they tend to grow that account even stronger. And one thing I did want to say as well, as far as your team and how they've helped us with this, is as we continue to push the needle, right? You guys, we've come to you several times and said, we've put pressure on you, and you've never backed down from that. You go away from those meetings, and you come back with strong strategy. Then the organization of how you run the business, from, you build the strategy, then you run in sprints, on a weekly sprint, so we can see exactly what's happening. You guys helped us build a new website that was SEO friendly, even after I built that first one way back in 2015. And it's made a huge impact on who we are as an organization. We can strongly go to our investor team or our governance team and say, we are proving every dollar that we're spending in marketing. And a lot of that comes from the SEO world, and the Jumpfactors partnership.
Wonderful. Well, that's great. And I know now recently, as we've discussed with your team, we're expanding further to encompass a lot of additional tactics, leveraging some paid media through retargeting, as well as some outbound lead generation, which we'll be launching shortly with your team, as well as leveraging some media display ads and so on. So we're excited about expanding there. One of the things that I think would be now helpful, kind of, that we've shifted from talking about some of the KPIs and metrics, is, of course, when you're engaging with a team, it's important that the team works well together. There's good collaboration, good relationship. And so oftentimes that'll be sort of the next set of questions from an MSP, especially one that has, if it's more the executive that would be working with us or some of the marketing team. What can you share in terms of your experience with the project management and responsiveness of the team that you've worked with at our firm?
Very responsive. The team, like I said, from a strategic perspective, the team sits down on a quarterly basis, and we talk about what our goals are. Our goals, like I said, we've thrown some things at you. Our goals shift frequently. We say this is the number one priority, and then all of a sudden an acquisition happens, and then all of a sudden we have a different priority. And your team has been very professional in the shifting of that, and allowing us, and really, as a partner, has come and said, let us help you do this, let us help you do that, and helped us grow through that process. One thing I love is you have the account manager, and then you have kind of the account director, and the account director kind of helps drive that overall strategy, but that account manager is there week in, week out, helping me understand what's happening behind the scenes. SEO is, it's not always fast. There's a strategy that goes in play. And that's one thing that people have to understand. As a true marketer, you have to understand you don't get instant results. And, we've gone through multiple, what I'll call cycles with you guys, where we focused on one thing, and 6 months later, we're seeing the results of that.
Well, that's great. And I think that shares some sort of context for people in terms of, marketing is a multi-function, endeavor, and you need to be able to execute on all areas: content, SEO, offsite, onsite. Also, there's obviously the asset side of things, downloadable pieces, ebooks, white papers, checklists, things that are going to pique people's interest that will lead to conversions and bring them back to the firm. And so, obviously doing this requires some level of knowledge and expertise in different areas. How have you sort of found the team from that perspective in terms of their knowledge level and, specialization in terms of the interaction with you?
I mean, I would say top notch. When I asked for an SEO person to take a look, hey, can you check our site speed? I see some lagging, we have someone checking it, and then I get a report back saying everything's fine, or we found this one little thing, but it was, minor and we fixed it. From a downloadable perspective, I mean, even coming up with ideas of creating, we have multiple blogs and the repurposing of those blogs into those downloadables and helping us put those PDFs together. Your team has been instrumental in that. Your team has even helped us with our hubs. Like initially, when we very first started working with you guys, we were working with HubSpot as our marketing automation platform. Your team helped us build all of those like lead forms and everything to come through that, basically through the funnel, so we can assign those leads, like you said earlier, quickly. So, they come in, we see them instantly, we can assign them instantly. And, and I'll go back to that point because I'm not sure I spoke to it when you asked the question, but that speed to answer is critical. Like most of the time, because of the way the world works today with search, they're looking at 3 or 4 vendors. And they're going to talk to the one that gets a hold of them first, right? And if they find what they think they want in the first one, they're never going to call the other ones back. And that's something that I think our team has learned, that, through trial and error, we've learned that is critical. And so we definitely try to be immediately on those leads. And then I've brought in other tools, like you said, automation tools and things like that for my team, because cadence is important too. And those touch points are important. And you can't make an assumption that a lead's not good just because one time or like maybe they didn't call you back immediately. And we've closed leads, we just closed I think a $7 million deal that came in 6 months ago. But my account rep had to work it. You're not going to close a $7 million deal. It's not a transaction. That's a relationship. And so, people aren't going to give you the keys to the kingdom if they don't trust you. And so that's one thing that our sales team has done a really good job at, is really assessing that lead opportunity, understanding what that customer needs, and then filling that gap with the customer so we do get that next meeting. Because when you book from a web lead, it's all about getting the next meeting, right? Your goal is always to get the next meeting. And I think that you're, the Jumpfactor role in that is the number of leads, right? In order to close 25 or 30%, you've got to have X number, right? So you guys have definitely, through the growth, have just continued to drive the traffic to the site to put us in front of customers where at least we are an option. And we didn't have that 5 years ago.
No, that's great. And it's so many great nuggets there. One of the things I love about the team is that you guys are on it from a sales perspective. You touched on one KPI, 25 to 30% closing, which is fantastic. And, some of our MSPs, close at the same rate. I'd say the average about 20%. But you guys are definitely above average. And some are on the lower end. And one of the challenges we find when we dig in is the main difference is speed to lead and follow-up cadence, not enough consistent follow-up. So that's a really good call out, because it can make the difference between literally going from a 15% close rate or 10% to 30%, which essentially doubles your ROI, just with that simple focus there. So lots of great information. I think one of the things that you might be able to shed some final help for a viewer that's an MSP executive or marketing director or VP is, if they're looking to step on the gas for growth and they're looking for an outside partner that could help with this, what would you say are some of the key things they should look out for? And, anything that you'd like to reference with regards to Jumpfactor?
Don't be afraid to ask questions. Don't be afraid. Don't expect to know everything, right? Lean on the expertise of your partners. I've learned a lot through the last 5 years working with Jumpfactor. One thing that I learned when I was interviewing other people is some salespeople can really oversell, but when you actually start asking the deeper questions, they don't have the answers. And I think with Jumpfactor, that was one thing. Every question I asked, you guys had a strategy that you followed. You believe in your strategy because it's worked. You you have an objective as to how you see that strategy through, and you're very consistent in that methodology.
Awesome. Well, I really appreciate those insights. I think the audience will, take a lot of good information from that. Larissa, always a pleasure connecting. It's great, interacting and getting some of your insights. I really appreciate the time you've taken out today. Looking forward to connecting again soon. And thank you very much. Have a great rest of the day.
Thank you, Samir.